guys, what's up? I'm Clay, and today I'm going to be doing a video on Loki and the Hulk being the same person, at least after Infinity War. So, I have like 10 or so reasons why I think Loki is still alive and he is Bruce Banner at the end, well, actually, the whole way through Infinity War and into Endgame. And I'm going to go through those reasons today as to why I think he's Banner, and then I'll try and back it up with proof from all the movies within the MCU. So, number one is that Loki is the god of mischief, and we know this, obviously from Norse mythology, who Loki is, and we find out from Thor that he's the god of mischief. You might be asking, well, what does that have to do with him being Bruce Banner? And for me, it's saying that we know his powers allow him to, project himself onto other people, or he can take the form of another person. We've seen him do this in Thor when he turns into Captain America, and then of course in Ragnarok he pretends to be Odin, and so we know he can do this. So what if when Thanos attacks their ship after the events of Ragnarok and Loki is giving him the Space Stone, and then Hulk attacks Thanos? What if that whole time that Hulk was actually Loki? And their plan was to send Loki down to Earth as Banner to get to Tony to help them again in their fight against Thanos. And you might be saying, well, why couldn't they have just sent down the actual Bruce Banner? And maybe they didn't have Banner. They would have had the Hulk. But Banner himself even said that he might not be able to switch back to Banner after he turns back to Hulk. And in Ragnarok he turned back to Hulk, and he still would have been Hulk in Infinity War. But he could have changed back because he had been beaten by Thanos, so he could have changed back, but I still think it's Loki, and we'll get more into this later. So the next thing I want to talk about is that the Hulk in the battle against Thanos on the ship, he ended up losing to Thanos pretty quickly. So that's number two. Number two is that the Hulk lost quickly to Thanos. But yeah, Thanos is powerful, and yeah, he had the Power Stone. But if you look at the gauntlet during this battle, the Power Stone doesn't light up, which means he obviously didn't use the Power Stone against the Hulk, and he was still able to beat him. I get Thanos is powerful without the stone, but you have somebody as strong as the Hulk who takes down the giant Chitauri dragon-looking things, I don't even know what they're called, in Avengers. And then you have the Hulk who defeated Abomination. He took down Hela's giant dog thing in Ragnarok. I mean, the Hulk isn't easily beaten. Thor even had a hard time beating him in Avengers. And so for Thanos to be able to come in without using the Power Stone and defeat the Hulk that quickly, it was kind of suspicious, at least for me. But then again, I don't really know how strong Thanos actually is. So he could, I'm sure it's possible he could actually beat him, but I doubt it. And so that's another reason why I think that Loki is the Hulk, because he lost so quickly, because it wasn't actually Hulk, it was Loki as the Hulk. And we know that if he were to turn into somebody, he doesn't get their power. So if he would turn into Thor, or make himself look like Thor, he wouldn't be able to lift the hammer because he's not actually Thor. So he doesn't get their power, but he can look like them. And so he may have been able to hold his own for a little bit against Thanos, but that's probably why he lost so quickly if it actually was Loki instead of the Hulk. And number 3 is going to be that Banner knows about Thanos. And so it kind of like was weird when I was watching Infinity War how much Bruce Banner actually knew about Thanos. And Bruce Banner wouldn't have really known any of this. The Hulk would have, but we've seen in previous situations that Banner doesn't remember knowing what the Hulk does. You know, because he's asked, even in Ragnarok, he doesn't realize that Hulk was like this major star on the planet they were on until Thor tells him, like, oh yeah, we were fighting. We know Banner can't really remember stuff as the Hulk, at least not to an extreme. He might remember some stuff, but he doesn't remember everything. So the fact that he was able to land in the Sanctum and tell Doctor Strange and then tell Tony that Thanos was coming and that Thanos had the Power Stone and had the Space Stone and he killed Thor, and he was able to tell him all this stuff. He shouldn't have been able to do that as Bruce Banner. He shouldn't have remembered any of that. And so that's why I think because if it was Loki, Loki would know that. And since he is Banner, then that would explain why Banner would know that stuff. And on that note, number 4 would be that Loki thinks that Thor is dead when he was off the ship before Thanos even killed Thor. So he could have just been assuming that Thor was dead. But at the same time, he seemed kind of like emotional when he said it. And yeah, Banner and Thor are friends, but I think that emotion would have came more from Thor's brother being Loki. Because you could see the emotion in his face when he said Thor is dead, and he was telling Tony that Thor is dead, even though Thor wasn't dead. Number 5 follows up from number 3 when I was saying about he knows that Thanos has both stones. Now again, if Banner was Hulk at that point, he wouldn't remember anything that happened anyways. But the fact that he knows about the Infinity Stones suddenly, he knows that Thanos had both the Power Stone and the Space Stone. But when Hulk gets beamed off of the ship, Thanos had only had the Power Stone at that point. And who gives him the Space Stone? Loki. Loki gives Thanos the Tesseract, where he then he breaks the Tesseract and takes the Space Stone. Loki would know that he had both stones. And if that wasn't actually Loki that he killed, which I'll get to later on, but it's Loki that's on Earth, then he would know that he gave him the stone. Like, Loki would know that Loki gave Thanos the stone, right? I mean, he gave it to him. He wasn't actually there, but he would know that he gave it to him. So, to me, Banner saying that he has 2 stones didn't make sense, because when Banner got shot off the ship using the Bifrost from Heimdall, he only had the Power Stone. So how could he know that he has the Space Stone unless he was there to see it? I'm sure Banner wasn't just assuming that Thanos got the Space Stone, because that would show that he doesn't believe in Thor and Loki's powers or abilities to withstand Thanos. And that wouldn't be good for, you know, that's his teammate. He's just going to say that they can't do their job. I doubt it. So I think that proves that because Loki would know that Loki gave him the stone, right? So that kind of pushes it a little bit more towards it being Loki than actually Banner. Number 6 is that Banner knew that when he was describing Thanos to Doctor Strange and Tony, he was saying he was the one behind the attack on New York in the first Avengers. And so number 6 is that Banner knew that Thanos was behind the attack on New York. And this is kind of weird because first off, Banner wouldn't have known who Thanos was. And secondly, if anybody should have known what was actually up in space and who was behind the attack on New York, it should have been Tony, right? Because Tony's the one that went up through the portal before it closed as Iron Man and put the bomb up in space to blow up the Chitauri army. And so I think if this was Loki, then they had sent him down here to recruit Tony to help in the battle. And Loki would know that by saying Thanos was behind what happened in New York, that would get Tony to come in and fight against him, because Tony has said that New York, what the events of New York has been like in his mind, and it's been haunting him since 2012 when it happened. And so Loki would know that saying that would give him that push to want to fight against Thanos, and who better to tell him that than somebody that he trusts. And that is the whole point as to why he turns into Banner and doesn't just come down as Loki. But we'll also get to that later. And number 8, like I said earlier, in Ragnarok, Banner says that he might not be able to change back to Banner from the Hulk once he changes. And so the fact that he changes, and so the fact that he's able to change back to Banner and won't change back to Hulk, that whole situation there is kind of like mysterious. But also the fact that he doesn't change to Hulk during the battle in Infinity War can also fall into this category, because he doesn't want to change back to Hulk because he knows that he's not as strong as Hulk, and that if he were to turn into Hulk, he would possibly seem like not as strong, or give away the fact that he's not Hulk, and then Tony would think, oh, well, he's, it's somebody else, or it's Loki or whatever, and then he wouldn't trust him. So he's not going to think anything's happening, and then it's just going to ruin the whole plan. And so making up this story about Hulk not wanting to come out because he's embarrassed that he lost to Thanos kind of makes sense. That way it gives him an excuse not to fight in the battle as Hulk. That right there shows that this could have been planned from the start. Like, once they got attacked, they were like, okay, we're going to send Loki down as Banner to get Tony to help, because they knew they needed Tony's help. And so if you send Banner down, then you're going to get Tony recruited on the, to help in the battle. And that's why he didn't turn back to Hulk, was because if he did, he wouldn't be as strong as Hulk. Yeah, he still could have helped even the odds a little bit. But if you had him fighting against either Thanos' children, or if there were some giant creatures that they needed Hulk to take care of, Loki wouldn't have been able to do it as Hulk. And he didn't want to fight against Thanos again as Hulk. So he didn't, because he had already fought against him and lost, and he knows he can't beat him. And if he were to fight against Thanos as Hulk again in front of everybody, then they'd realize that that he's not Hulk, and that they were deceived or whatever, and this could have been a trap, and then it would have just been chaos. And so that's why I think he didn't turn back to Hulk. So number 9 is that he came down as Banner in the first place. And the reason he came down as Banner, as I said earlier, is because if he had just come down as Loki, we know nobody would trust him, because he's Loki. He's the god of mischief. Nobody would believe him, especially not after what he did in New York in the first Avengers. Nobody's going to trust Loki. But who better to recruit the Avengers than somebody that they would trust to recruit the Avengers, and that being Bruce Banner, and they didn't have the actual Banner because Hulk couldn't turn back to Banner, and so they sent him off with Valkyrie, Korg, and Meek, which we know survived the snap and were off somewhere else. People have said that before, that they were off on a separate mission. So what if they took the Hulk with them, and this whole storyline was to get Banner down to Earth? But if Hulk couldn't turn back to Banner, then they needed Loki to do it. And that's why he knows all this stuff about Thanos, and he knows about the Infinity Stones, and he knows that he had 2 stones, even though when Banner got beamed down to Earth, if you will, from the Bifrost, he only had 1. So he came down as Banner because he knew Tony would trust Banner. He could have came down as anybody. He could have came down as Thor. He could have came down as, but he knew that the only one that was up in space other than Thor that Tony knew was Banner. And so he had to come down as Banner. And number 10, to finish this off, and I think this is the biggest reason why I think that Loki is Bruce Banner, is because he doesn't really know science at all in this movie. I mean, every other movie we've seen Hulk in, he's been doing some kind of scientific experiment or talking science with Tony. He helped create Ultron. He helped in Avengers. That's why they brought him there in the first place. And then Infinity War, he just all of a sudden doesn't know the answer to Shuri's question. He said, we never thought of it, when she asked him why he didn't rearrange the things to get the stone out of Vision or whatever. And he says, oh, we didn't think of it. 2 of the smartest people in the MCU, and none of them could think to just do that to get the stone out of Vision. Or even before that, when they're at Avengers headquarters, and they asked, can you get the stone out of Vision without killing him? And he says, I can't, not here. You're telling me that they're in Avengers headquarters, where they probably have the best equipment in the entire world, or they could get it because it's Tony Stark. I mean, he's a billionaire, and he could get anything he needed, right? And you have one of the smartest minds probably ever in Bruce Banner, and he can't figure out how to get the stone out of Vision without destroying Vision. I don't believe it. I really don't. I think that if he were going to, if he were actually Banner, he would have been able to at least figure something out, or realize, okay, we need to do this to get the stone out without killing Thanos. Even if he couldn't physically do it by himself and he needed help to do it, he should still at least have an idea of what to do. And we never really see him do anything scientific in this movie. And that's because, one, he really didn't need to, other than to get the stone out of Vision. But think about this. Had he been in the room with Shuri as Banner, and it actually had been Banner, they probably would have got that done a lot sooner, and then Vision wouldn't have had the stone. They could have destroyed the stone, and none of that would have happened, because the stone would have been destroyed. So the fact that he tries to avoid turning into the Hulk, he knows way too much than he should have if he was actually Bruce Banner. He knows who Thanos was, and he remembers things that he learned as the Hulk. And then also that he can't do science. These 10 reasons that I gave in this video are why I think not only is Loki alive, but I think he's also Bruce Banner. And you might be saying, well, this doesn't make sense. We saw Loki get killed. But it was either, in my opinion, it was either a hologram of Loki. We know he can do that. He's done it numerous times before. Or he put his likeness onto another Asgardian who was willing to die for Thor or Loki or whatever. So he put, he made somebody else look like him. And so, I mean, if he can make himself look like somebody else, I'm sure he could make somebody else look like him. And so that could have been who Thanos killed in Avengers or Infinity War. But also you got to take into account that he holds the Tesseract. So if it was a normal Asgardian, he probably shouldn't have been able to hold the Tesseract because it can't be held by like human hands. But at the same time, Asgardians aren't really humans, so I don't know how that would play in there. But this is my theory on Loki being Banner. I know a lot of other people, a lot of other channels have done this video, but I just kind of wanted to do this because, you know, Endgame comes out next week, and I've been rewatching the Avengers movies, and I'm like, you know, I really want to talk about Loki being alive because I think he's still alive. Even if he's not, this was fun to do. I really enjoyed thinking of reasons as to why Loki was still alive, because I'm a huge Loki fan and I didn't want him to be dead. And that I think is my biggest reason why I wanted to do this video. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like this video. Leave a comment on if you think this theory is true, if you don't believe in this theory, if you just don't like Loki and you want him to be gone. You know, just comment something in the video. Let us know your thoughts on this, and if you're looking forward to Endgame, I know I am. It's gonna be a good one, 3 hours or so, but you know it'll be worth it because they got a lot of stuff to cover in this movie. So check out our other videos on this channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.